Hey, what's up everybody? Darius here with you today with a tutorial video basically on how to let the autopilot take over your flying in Microsoft Flight Simulator 10. This is going to be a bare bones basic tutorial on basically how can I let the autopilot help me line up with the runway, help me stay at a certain altitude, help me fly to the airport that I want to. And this is going to be a basic tutorial for beginners wanting a more realistic commercial aviation approach to the game. So here we are in a CRJ, Canada Air Regional Jet 700. It's a regional aircraft, seats about 70 people, and these are immensely popular in the United States. You'll see them being flown by any number of airlines, basically all of them besides Southwest and Hawaiian Airlines in the US. Southwest and Allegiant and all those low-cost carriers don't fly. But if we're talking legacy carriers like United, American, Delta, and Alaska Airlines, all of those fly the CRJ 700. Obviously, they're all outsourced to commuter airlines like GoJet, Envoy, and Horizon, but they're doing business as United Airlines, Delta Airlines, and so on. Anyways, that's a story for another video. We're going to go into cockpit view and get you settled in. Basically, what do we need to know to get this aircraft flown by the autopilot? Well, right here is your autopilot panel. Right here, in the middle. So what do all these buttons mean? Well, here's the autopilot engage switch. So when you've set everything up that you want, you hit this button and the aircraft does it for you. You hit the disengage, or the DISC, disconnect button underneath it, and then it shuts everything off and you're flying the aircraft via your joystick or keyboard and mouse. Perfect. Here's your speed, the autopilot speed hold switch, I guess is what they would call it. You hit this, and any speed you've set it to here underneath, right now it's set to 0 knots, but say you set it to 200 knots or 300 knots, you hit this, and the auto throttle will take over and the aircraft will fly at that speed you set it to, of course depending if the autopilot engage is on. Perfect. Here's the heading switch, and hitting this switch will make the aircraft fly to the heading you have indicated here, which right now is set at 360 degrees, which is flat out due north. So say you set it to 180 degrees, that means the aircraft will fly due south. You set it to 270 degrees, that means you're going to fly west, and then, respectively 90 degrees, you'll fly due east. Just as an example, but you can set it to like 91 degrees if you want to be specific. Perfect. So up here is your navigation hold switch, and this becomes important when you're using the GPS to navigate the plane, which we will be doing in this video. So you want to go ahead and turn that on. As you can see, the flight director switch here automatically comes on too. If you can see that, we'll hit the nav switch and boom, flight director switch comes on. What's the flight director switch? Well, it's this purple thing right here that outlines the artificial horizon, which is this on your cockpit dashboard. This purple flight director switch is the autopilot telling you, oh, we need to be at this pitch, or we need to turn this way, or the aircraft will be turning this way. So anything here in purple, that's the autopilot taken over, as in it's going to do what the purple thing is indicating on this screen. That's the flight director switch. And also the indicated speed will be in purple, as well as the indicated altitude that you set it to. So let's say we want to fly at 10,000 feet and we input 10,000 feet. This number here in purple will change from 0 to 10,000, and I'll show you that right now. Here next to the navigation hold switch is the altitude switch, which we need to become familiar with because we want to set this aircraft to fly at a certain altitude. So We'll just do a really short flight. So we'll set the altitude to be like 10,000 feet. This is not going by the book, but then again, we're just doing a basic bare bones tutorial. So we set it at 10,000 feet. Perfect. Hit the altitude hold switch, indicating we want the aircraft to fly at this altitude. Boom. And then if you can't see this, there's going to be a small white window that pops up when you scroll over this, and it tells you what you've selected it as. I'm not sure if my screen recording is picking that up, but you'll be able to see exactly what altitude you're hitting at, with going to be a small white dialog box underneath it. For me, it says altitude hold selector 10,000 feet. Go down here and look at that. That number changed from 0 to 10,000, indicating yes, the autopilot is taking us to 10,000 feet. Well, perfect. We're pretty much ready for takeoff, and let the autopilot do the flying. Next step will be opening up your GPS. How do we open up the GPS? Hit Shift and 3, and this GPS will open up. Wow, perfect. So we exit out, and this is Iowa. We're at Des Moines International Airport, right in the smack dab middle, almost. And we want to go to another airport which would be able to handle a GPS approach. Not all airports will have runways that the GPS can handle, like smaller airports, regional airports, really small. So we're going to go to one of these airports here in the vicinity, somewhere close by. And we can see this should be the Sioux City Airport. This would be the Omaha Epley Field Airport, Quad Cities. That should be Cedar Rapids, if I'm not mistaken, if I know my Iowa geography correctly, and this should be Waterloo Airport. And since they're blue on the mini map here, on the GPS map, these should be able to handle a GPS approach. So we'll go to one of these, and it seems to me that this should be the closest one to where we're at. So we want to hit this button right here on the GPS, the direct to waypoint. Hit there, and this window will pop up. Here's where you can type in the ICAO code for the airport you want to go to. So we want to go to Waterloo, which I know the ICAO code is KALO. That's the Waterloo Municipal Airport in Waterloo, Iowa. You can Google the ICAO code for any airport that you want. So say you want to go to one of the other airports I mentioned, like Omaha. You would type in Omaha ICAO airport code, and it will pop up. Which, I mean, I know the ICAO code for Omaha is KOMA. And you just type that in instead, and Omaha Epley Field will come up. But we are going to Waterloo since it is closer. We'll hit enter 3 times to activate it, and boom. That's the waypoint we'll be going, to Waterloo. So what have we done? Well, we got the GPS set up to where the airport we want to go to. We have the altitude set up to fly right here, to set up to fly where we want to go to, 10,000 feet. We have the navigation set up to tell us, yes, we want the autopilot to navigate the plane for us. Now, we want to tell the airplane, or the aircraft, we want the input from the GPS we just did to Waterloo as our navigation. How do we do that? Well, right here is the navigation GPS switch. It's currently set to nav. We want to set this to GPS. This tells the aircraft, hey, I want you to follow the GPS, which we did right here to Waterloo. Now the aircraft will follow whatever you input into the GPS. Now we're ready for takeoff. We want to lower the flaps to increase the drag so that this aircraft can take off. Other than that, we are cleared for takeoff. So let's get the thrust rolling. Perfect. If this is just a little trick, if you hit Shift Z 3 times, you'll see this red information bar at the top left. And this will give you important information like the current speed, just approaching 70 knots now. Your heading, we're 311 degrees. Your current altitude, 964 feet. And longitude, latitude, what g-force you are experiencing. So now we're at 140 knots, so we should be able to lift off and rotate. Perfect. So we are flying. We want to get the gear up. Perfect. So now we want to press Shift 3 again to open up our GPS, and we can see we got to turn right. So let's go ahead and turn right, nice and easy. We don't want to cause our passengers to experience any unnecessary g-force, as right now we're at 1G, which is right where we want to be. Perfect. Turning right to Waterloo. Get a nice view of downtown Des Moines there, just northeast of the airport. Alright, so we are now in line with that line that gets us to Waterloo. And it's perfect. So now what we want to do is hit the autopilot engage. Boom. Now you can sit back and relax, because right now the autopilot is taking over all control of the plane. It'll follow this line to Waterloo. It will hold us at 10,000 feet, which we inputted the altitude. So as of right now, we don't need to really do anything, except do keep an eye on our speed, that we don't hit the overspeed warning, which for this aircraft I believe happens after 320 or 340 knots. So we need to keep an eye on that. But we are within the speed. We're pretty much good to go. We do want to set the flaps back to 0 as we're well after takeoff. And we are good to go. I'm going to speed this video up for you guys because this is just us flying with no real action happening, as we're just letting the autopilot do its thing. So we're about 12 minutes away, even though we just left Des Moines, but it's, barely 80 nautical miles from Des Moines. So what we want to do is go ahead and put that to a normal. We'll pause the 4 times playback speed. So what we want to do to get ready for landing? What do you want to do for landing? Apologize. We want to hit the procedure page, which is PROC here at the bottom of the GPS. Hit it. Here we can see we can select an approach which we want to do at, there's the overspeed warning. Happens at exactly 340 knots. Like I said, always keep an eye on that. So we'll turn the throttle back a bit. Perfect. So we want to select approach. Hit enter, and this gives you a list of all the runways at Waterloo Municipal Airport. We are coming in from Des Moines, so we're coming from the southwest. So we want like runway 36, which, 36 indicates that the aircraft, that the runway, is positioned due north, 360 degrees. Deductive reasoning can tell you that runway 12 is at a position of 120 degrees. So we want runway 36. So scroll down using the big arrows to runway 36, hit enter, enter again, and we want to activate that approach. So as you can see, this aircraft will be in line with this purple line. The purple line is always the active GPS procedure. So the white here will follow that purple. So once we've flown through that purple line, the next white line will turn purple, and that'll be our final approach into Waterloo. So as of right now, we're just letting the flight take over so we can go ahead and speed this up until we actually get near the airport. These are all the other vector waypoints here in Iowa. KCID is, I believe, Cedar Rapids Airport. So this lists, the GPS would tell you all the nearby airports as well. KCID is actually, now that I think about it, it's called the Eastern Iowa Airport, but technically it's in Cedar Rapids. I just said this. I just mentioned the Cedar Rapids Airport. So we'll take this back to a normal speed, and we want to start descending because, hey, we're getting pretty close to the airport. We're only about 36 miles away, nautical miles away. So we want to lower the aircraft using this altitude in the minus direction, and we'll make it hold at 5,000 feet. Now, once again, this is just bare bones, not going by the book at all, just easy tutorial to follow. And as you can see, this number changed to 5,000, meaning that's where we're headed. As you can see, we are losing altitude, and you can kind of tell that the aircraft is dipping, which is what we want it to do. As you can see, we are approaching it closer and closer. We will be taking a left turn here in a minute. And we can speed this up again. Until we're actually closer to the airport. Alright, so about 25 nautical miles away, 4 minutes to arrive at the first vector, and we're approaching our 5,000 feet hold. And the aircraft is leveling off, as you can tell. Once again, this is the autopilot doing everything. I haven't even touched my joystick. It's flying by itself, which is perfect. Don't have to do anything. So, now what you want to do is go ahead and mentally prepare for landing. Make sure you know where the flaps are, because we'll be using the flaps to increase our drag and decrease our speed. Here are the flaps right here. You also want to arm the spoilers, and we can actually do that right now. This is the spoiler, but I guess lever. And in order to arm the spoilers, what you want to do is press Shift and the slash key right next to it at the same time. As you can see, that lever moved. It is now in the armed position, and the spoiler armed position means that as soon as we touch down, we're going to actually slow this down. As soon as we touch down, the spoilers will engage, and we want the spoilers to engage because the spoilers will make the aircraft stick to the ground once the wheels touch the ground, and we really need that to happen. As you can see, the aircraft is now lined up with that runway perfectly, thanks to that GPS that we just inputted. So you want to continue to lose altitude as we are approaching the airport rather quickly. So you want to get this down to about 1,600 feet, give or take, since we are approaching that runway quicker and quicker. Always on approach, keep your eye on the speed. You don't want to stall. And what stall is basically where the aircraft is at a speed so low the wings cannot produce any lift. And if that happens, the aircraft will just sink to the ground because it's not producing any lift. So once this gets to about 100 knots, you will enter stall, and this warning light will flash. So we want to keep an eye on this speed. Do not let the aircraft stall. That's important. Now that we are getting closer to the airport, let's go ahead and lower that flaps. Go ahead and lower it to about the middle. And once we get closer, we can extend them all the way. I guess right now we can go ahead and extend them all the way to full. The spoilers are armed. Let's go ahead and lower the landing gear as so. So we got the landing gear down, we got the spoilers armed, we got the flaps all the way down. We are perfectly ready for the landing. the aircraft is completely lined up with the runway. Let's have an outside look at how we're positioned. You can see the flaps fully extended right here. Landing gear is down, and we are completely in line with that runway, thanks to the autopilot. So now that we keep on dropping, what we want to do is make sure we're not dropping too fast. So keep the vertical speed indicator at a decent speed. So right now I have it set at negative 600 feet per minute, which is a good approach speed. It's not too fast, not too slow. You also want to find out what's the altitude of the airport I'm approaching, and I know it to be about 890 feet. So we don't want to go any lower than that. So
sync rate.
As you can see, our sync rate warning is pulling up, saying we are going way too fast, too low. So because of that, we are going to descend at about 400 feet per minute. So we are approaching that airport right on cue as the outside view. Perfect. What's our speed? 130 knots. Perfect. So now this is the crucial part, because the airplane itself will not land for you. You will have to actually touch down the aircraft. So once we get close to the airport, or to the runway, you want to disengage the autopilot by pressing Z right about now, and go ahead and just slowly position the aircraft towards the runway, and then gently guide it down, reduce your speed, pull up a little bit, and then wait for the touchdown right there. Go ahead, perfect, reverse thrust, and there's your perfect lined up landing. As you can see, we're in the middle of the runway. We've touched down using the autopilot features. We can go ahead and brake a little bit if we wanted to, and we can go ahead and leave the active runway into the taxiway nice and slow. This is going to be a really bad turn, actually. Should be able to make it still, though. Oh yeah, should be perfectly fine. Yeah, oh yeah. Once we leave the taxiway, now we can, once we leave the runway, now we can put the flaps all the way up again, put the spoilers all the way up as well. And we are good to go. Now let's see how well we did. We can actually do an instant replay of that landing. Go back about 180 seconds. That's too far. Instant replay about 120 seconds. And we'll get an outside view of this landing. We can see just how good we did using the autopilot features. You can see we are completely lined up with the runway. You can tell when we disengage the autopilot. Get a nice smooth touchdown. Right there. Perfect. Stuck to the ground. Spoilers out. I engaged the reverse thrust. And just a perfect landing. Thanks to the GPS. And once again, we only used about not even half the runway. Oh, a little more than half, I guess, seeing as this is a smaller runway. So we'll exit the replay and then go back to the cockpit view. Now, this is This was for a CRJ 700, but the autopilot will look about the same in any of the other aircrafts. You will have an autopilot engage, a disengage, an altitude hold selector, navigation hold selector, a button where you need to press to select from GPS to nav, I guess to GPS from nav. And then you'll have a heading, approach, speed. This is pretty basic stuff. You'll have on the 737, the Airbus A321, and the Boeing 747. This will work for any airport. You just gotta pick a runway, which we did. We picked runway 36, and we had a very smooth touchdown. The approach seemed a little low. I should have been a couple of 100 feet above ground, but at the end we did still touch down on the runway. We didn't overshoot it. We made a perfect touchdown right there at the runway. So if you follow this tutorial, you'll have a similar approach at any airport. Once again, the most crucial part is, of course, once you have to disengage the autopilot, you can do so by pressing Z on your keyboard. You will have to actually make the aircraft touch the ground using your joystick, and that's done pretty easily. The aircraft's already losing speed and altitude, so you just gotta guide it gently, not too much, on your joystick or keyboard and mouse, and then make sure your thrust is completely pulled back and off right before touchdown. That'll give you a perfect touchdown every time. If you have any questions, do comment, and I'll be happy to answer them either by reply to your comment or by posting another video. So I hope you enjoyed this bare bones tutorial on how to use the GPS. Hopefully you can implement it in your flying on Microsoft Flight Simulator 10. Hopefully this helped. Thanks again for watching.